Call the meeting to order. Today is February 3rd, 2021. It's 1 o'clock. Pam Harlan's our commission secretary. Pam, will you call the roll?
Chairman Waters.
Present.
Commissioner Briscoe.
Present.
Commissioner Smith.
Present.
Commissioner Ecker.
Present.
Commissioner Brinkman.
Present.
Commissioner Boatwright.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Great. Well, welcome, everybody. It's good to get together again, even though it's a virtual meeting. We're kind of getting used to that. I wanted to share just a few helpful hints during today's meeting revolving around the virtual platform here. If you'll mute your microphones when you're not speaking, that'll help. We encourage everyone to use the stage view under the layout option, and it makes it easier to see the presentation and the presenters. We encourage you to speak slowly and clearly and loud enough to be heard. There'll be some hesitation between people speaking from time to time and hearing, so pause and allow enough time for time to pass before moving on. Remember, nothing's perfect. If your connection isn't working correctly, please disconnect and try to reconnect, or it may be necessary to switch from the video conference to the teleconference, and I think our secretaries provided the instructions. There's several items we usually do at our normal meetings, but we won't do because we're not in an in-person meeting. These include our safety minute and the recognition of special guests. We do allow for a public comment period. Remind everyone that we offer this to all Missourians who want to come before the commission to address issues of concern. In order to be able to do that, we ask people to sign up or register with the secretary 24 hours in advance of the meeting. We do allow people to make the public comments, have 5 minutes for comments or 10 minutes per subject. It's good to check in with the secretary on that so we can check out the hookup and make sure everything's working properly. We do have a procedural item that we continue to follow today regarding abstentions. They're commissioners because of land ownership, business interests, or lawyers may have clients and may either have some relationship to a matter to come before the commission or may have a potential or actual conflict to be considered to vote upon. That commissioner member will indicate if he or she chooses to abstain from voting or recuse himself from a particular discussion of an agenda item. If the agenda item is divisible by contract, call, project, or the like, a commissioner may specify that particular matter and still vote on the remaining agenda. This information is provided to the commission secretary by letter in advance of the meeting. The commission secretary will duly indicate the absentee or recusal according to the minutes in the meeting. Madam Secretary, have the necessary letters been prepared for that?
Yes, they have.
All right. Well, we'll start with our first order of business. This will be the consideration of minutes from our meeting held on January 6th. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the minutes from our October 6, 2020 meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and second. We approve the minutes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say aye. The minutes will stand approved. The next item to consider is, yes, sir, Greg.
I did say the wrong date. I'm sorry. I meant January 6, 2021 meeting.
Yes.
I think I said October, so I want to stand corrected on that.
Okay, Pam will make that correction. Well,
Thank you.
time to consider the consent agenda. Does anyone need to remove any item for discussion later on the consent agenda or abstain from any item? Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, the same sign. The consent agenda will stand approved. We'll move now to our committee and board reports. I serve as the chairman of the audit committee, along with Commissioner Brinkman and Commissioner Ecker. We don't have a report this month, but the committee will meet next in April. Commissioner Briscoe serves as chairman of he and I serve as co-chairs of the legislative committee. And Commissioner Briscoe, do you have a report today?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do. As part of his transportation budget for 2022, Governor Parson announced an $83 million allocation to MoDOT for transportation infrastructure needs, including cost share projects and low volume roads. In addition, Governor Parson highlighted Missouri's strategic location in the center of the nation and is calling for an investment of over $6 million in projects at Missouri's established ports. This is in response to new shipping technology that could create a corridor through Missouri, giving the Show Me state the opportunity to become a powerful logistics hub for all of North America. Governor Parson is also seeking $25 million to fulfill the existing transportation cost share program to help communities complete other important infrastructure projects. Regarding the Commission's priority legislation for this session, MoDOT staff continues to work to identify legislative sponsors. Representative Wayne Wallingford from Cape Girardeau filed House Bill 853. This bill would prohibit handheld cell phone and other electronic wireless communication devices to be used while driving. This proposal would expand Missouri's current law, which prohibits drivers 21 years of age and under from using a handheld cell phone or other electronic communication device for text messaging and certain other forms of electronic messaging while driving. The proposed legislation would expand the current law to all drivers and strengthen it by prohibiting all handheld use of an electronic wireless communication device. Research tells us that handheld cell phone use while driving is currently banned in 19 states and the District of Columbia. 48 states prohibit texting while driving for all drivers. Unfortunately, Missouri and Montana are the only two states that do not prohibit texting while driving for all drivers. Budget hearings have begun as well. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, John. Commissioner Smith serves as president of the MPFC. I'm on that board along with Commissioner Eckert. Greg, do you have a report for us today?
I do, Mr. Chairman. The Missouri Transportation Finance Corporation had a Zoom meeting on Friday, January 29th. We had one action item. The board approved a one-year renewal option with Williams Keepers LLC to perform our audit services for fiscal year 2021. Our next scheduled meeting of the MTFC is in May of 2021. So I'd be glad to answer any questions if anyone has. And if not, that concludes my report.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Commissioner Briscoe, Smith, and Brinkman serve on the Emperor's board. And I think, Commissioner Briscoe, it's your turn. Do you have a report for us on the Emperors?
Well, Mr. Chairman, it's pretty slim pickings on this report. There is actually no report this month. The next board meeting will be Friday, February the 26th, 2021.
All right. Thank you, John.
Yes.
Okay, we'll turn next to our MoDOT Director's Report. Patrick McKinnon is Director of MoDOT. Patrick, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, and all those that are joining us remotely. Appreciate that. You know, in January, I'm pleased to report we had a reduction in the number of cases within the MoDOT employee ranks contracting COVID, and we still had nearly 100 cases in the month of January alone, but December was way above that. So in particularly the last 2 weeks, we've seen a significant slowing in the incidence of employees that have been testing positive. We really do believe that the efforts that I just want to recognize Ashley Halford and the employee health and wellness team Chris Engelbrecht in the safety and emergency management teams. These teams have been working round the clock really throughout the pandemic, but have really upped the game when it comes to sentinel testing and boxed in testing. So if we have more than one employee at a particular facility that tests positive, we actually go to boxed in testing. And what we've found is we've probably had over 30 incidences where people have tested positive and they didn't have any symptoms. They were asymptomatic. So that's, I think, really helping us stem the increase in cases. And I want to call out those two particular individuals and their teams for such amazing leadership in this. It's a sustained effort. It's been other duties as assigned, and they're just doing a terrific job. So we really think that the processes that we have in place have been working. As it stands, we're still, in that over 634 cases at MoDOT. So well over up into the 13% of the total employee base has contracted COVID. Unfortunately, we have had a fatality of one of our employees, as well as another employee lost a spouse to this horrible pandemic. So we're all very encouraged by seeing the case rates go down, and we just hope we can sustain that. And you're going to hear more about this with a formal presentation and recommendation about the Buck O'Neill Bridge project later. But I just want to recognize and hope everybody takes a moment to sit back and realize we've been dreaming about this. This is a major project. It's a lot of money. It is very hard to put these together on a financial plan. I think we should recognize that the region, the Kansas City region, really stepped up to the plate here, committing literally over $70 million to this project from city coffers and from taxpayers in the city. It just shows you how important as a regional priority this is. And I tell you, that leadership from the city also was a big part of why a federal build grant was drawn down and made available here. And also the Mid-America Regional Council allocated sub-allocated resources that are not within the MoDOT federal funds pool to this project, over $40 million. These efforts, this local engagement, this local financial support, and carry on at the state level and all the way through to the federal government with the build grant is why we're here today. And it's so exciting to be at this point in the procurement when we can now, after years of getting to this point where we're going to be able to, hopefully with your consent, pick the contracting team and get to work. I mean, it's amazing how long in the world it is that we live in today it takes to get to this point, but it's something worth celebrating. It's a big lift. But for the I-270 project, this is the biggest project, maybe the most complicated project that the department has taken on in well over a decade. And I want to recognize Mary Miller, our project director. She is doing a terrific job of shepherding the entire process to this point, bringing us to this point, working with the bidders, working to garner support from within MoDOT as well. Very important support that's going on from within the Kansas City district, Dave Sylvester and the team, but also Dennis Heckman and the bridge team have been a big part of getting us to where we are. We've had help from our right-of-way teams in Central District. So it's really a team effort here, but I tell you, every team needs to be led, and Mary's doing a wonderful job. And so I'm just thrilled that we're here. I'm looking forward to that presentation and for your decision making in that. And also pretty excited to know that next 1 week from today, we're actually going to be having and hosting our virtual statewide planning partners meeting. So February 10th, and that's the next step in the development of the 2022 to 2026 statewide transportation improvement program. as we discussed in January when we brought a draft of our financial forecast together, we anticipated that we'd have some good news that we'd be working on over the course of the month of January and would be able to bring this to you today. Well, I'm pleased to report that we're going to do just that. There are some significant things. Commissioner Briscoe mentioned the support from Governor Parson in the State of the State address. His continued support, you carry on with the Focus on Bridge program, which has been a big enabling factor in making progress in the last couple of years. It's a big part of why we're going to be able to, in July, have a similar meeting, July-August timeframe to be talking about the Rocheport Bridge, but also bringing some additional resources secured from good fiscal management and some CARES Act availability. We're going to be able to make some good progress on that with a couple of programmatic moves to make some progress on governor's cost share, on flood recovery matching funds to be able to augment our cost share program and to make some progress in our operating budget for our maintenance teams to work on low volume roads. All really good news. The next piece that we're going to bring into this financial forecast that I'm really excited about, and we've mentioned, is resources made available by the Relief Act, which was passed about a month ago at the federal level, providing in total $234 million to the state of Missouri. Now, when we brought the financial forecast in January, it was $279 million below what we brought you last year in January. So there have been impacts on the core revenues that we saw. This Relief Act is actually the backstop to that. It's really important to recognize that the federal government movement here is vitally important to sustain our capital program that just got over $1 billion for the first time this past year in terms of contractor payments, and projecting out the resource availability over the next 5-year period. We're bringing forward this Relief Act money. We've been able to already secure. We only just received the details of the program from Federal Highway a week ago, and we've already obligated some of those funds in a manner that makes it more flexible for us going forward. So we are feeling confident that we can roll all of the available resources there into our program, and that's what we're doing. About 34 million of that 234 is suballocated to our urban areas, and the remaining 200 will be available for our STIP development. We'll put it right into the allocation distribution, and our planning partners will, I hope, be very pleased that will be an additional amount of money available to them. We've also brought forward at your leadership and direction in the last couple of years, we've been talking about availability of tapping the capital markets to augment our construction program. And because of good fiscal management and paying down of debt, we anticipate that in 2023, we'll be able to do just that. A limited issuance, but $500 million. And what we're doing, and I think this is going to be really good news for our planning partners, we're putting that right into the allocation formula, and we're going to run that through the local planning process that works so well, and that will be included in the project plans that come out of our STIP planning process, as well as, when we're also looking at unfunded needs, we'll be able to pull some more of those into the planning process. I think good news all the way around. I'm really pleased to see that. You'll hear more about that coming up. Also wanted to report that 2 weeks ago, our multimodal division received a $450 million. I wish it was 450 in terms of millions, but $450,000 grant from the Federal Transit Administration. The award's going to launch a statewide van pooling program to get individuals to and from work. It's going to expand job access, create safe and reliable ways to commute, and use state-of-the-art of technology to help riders match and pay for fares in real time. Really exciting. Our multimodal team, Joni Ressler and the team down there continue to do a great job accessing and securing those federal funds with our federal partners. And then just one note, one thing I do have to note as I report the good news, I have to report the not so good news as well, which is we're working with our partners with the Highway Patrol to finalize the fatality numbers for this past year, and we'll be doing a joint release coming in the next few weeks. The numbers are quite a bit higher, more fatalities in Missouri than the prior year in calendar 2020. That's really unfortunate, and particularly so because for a large portion of the year we had lower traffic volumes. So we're really concerned about that. We know it's a trend in the wrong direction. We have to redouble our efforts working with our partners to really try to bend that curve and get it back where it belongs, which is trending down. I'm sorry to have to report that to you, but I think it's important as we consider particularly these important commission priorities for legislative action on policy, that all texting ban, handheld device movements. Those are very important policy matters that can help us bend that curve on safety. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, that concludes my report.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. Are there any comments or questions for Patrick?
No, I've just got a question or a comment. Yeah, I'm sad to hear you report that fatalities up with travel down as it's been. But on a good note, it's good to hear that the good news on the COVID front. So I read something, we're down to 9.2 in the state for positive. So. And one other thing I wanted to ask you, Patrick, overall, we've had a pretty mild winter this winter, thank God. But have any of our winter operations been comprised by, problems because of the pandemic?
Great question. Our teams have done a really terrific job, and because Mother Nature has been reasonably light on us, although I would imagine Commissioner Ecker might have a little something to say about that. He's experienced a little more winter weather in the Northwest District than other parts of the state. But the ability of our teams to shift resources into the kind of the heart of the storm has been going on, which has been really great because, as we've reported, we've had difficulty hiring replacement professional equipment operators. That's been a strain for us. We're down over 300 compared to what we would normally expect to have. We need 3,400 people to handle statewide storms and operate the 1,500 pieces of equipment that we have. And that's not that we have multiple people in them. We have mechanics and people in place to keep them serviced and on the road and loaded. But we also split 12-hour shifts. So, you need 2 people for every piece of equipment. We have averaged, I would say, in the storms that we've had during the day shift, we've averaged about 90% availability, which is not bad considering what I just reported. And in the night shift, on average, we have been down in the high 70s. So it has had an impact on our cycle times and the cleanup times. But I think our crews and our maintenance supervisors have done an amazing job of managing that. The good news is that because the winter has been light, we have not had as much of an outlay that we would normally have at this time this year. So we're well below what we would have expected to spend so far. But I'm really reluctant to report on that too much because usually as soon as you report that it's going really well, that foretells a big storm right around the corner. So we're, until we're at the end of March, early April, we're really, we're still on guard and doing that. But, 78 to 76% availability is the low point we've had statewide in terms of availability and equipment availability and use. But our teams managed it well and shifting people between day and night shift depending on when the precipitation is falling. Our teams have been incredibly flexible and we really appreciate their efforts.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I know being short on employees and then compromised with all this COVID stuff, you know, it's been a challenge. So it's good we've had a good winter. Thank you, Patrick.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I might just comment on the snow. I mean, I know the rest of the state's been pretty lucky, but we've had more snow this year than we have in the last 5 years, and they've been big snowstorms. I would say the one lucky thing is we haven't had extreme wind with our snow that we've gotten, but the crews have done a great job, and I've gotten lots of positive comments about how well the crews have been keeping up and thanking them for their, you know, working nights and staying with it. So, like always, doing a good job.
One of the things that I forgot to mention, but you know, Chris Redline, our district engineer, mentioned he had unsolicited assistance from other districts. Central District in Kansas City, particularly, sent resources, sent people and equipment north to help out during those. Just great example of teamwork at MoDOT.
Good work. Any other questions or comments for Patrick? Okay. We're always happy to have members of the legislature join us. And today we're honored to have State Representative Lewis Riggs here to visit with us. Representative Riggs, are you on the line? I believe he's calling in from across the street at the Capitol. Is that correct? Pam, do you know if we have a connection with the representative?
I believe he's online. Give me just a moment. We're confirming that. We believe he's online. We're trying to get him unmuted. I think he's going to have to try *6 to get unmuted.
Representative Riggs, are you there? Should we move on to our next item and see if we can get that connection worked out?
Yes, Jay is going to go check his Representative Riggs' office to make sure we can get him connected. So we'll go to the next item and come back.
Okay, let's just move on to the Northland Regional Chamber of Commerce, and then we'll come back to Representative Riggs. We're lucky to have a good relationship with the Northland Chamber. There's a lot going on in the Northland. Especially excited to talk about the Buck O'Neill Bridge today, which they were very supportive of. Today, we're going to meet with the chairman of the Northland Regional Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Ed Ford. Mr. Ford, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's a pleasure to meet with you, even though we would prefer in person, but you know, that's how it is. I'm with Sheila Tracy, our executive director, and I'm glad you brought up the Buck O'Neill Bridge. My understanding is that we are still on the same timetable. Everything's moving ahead. We're very appreciative that with all the challenges, we're able to keep that timetable. And I wanted to let the commission know what a pleasure it's been working with Mary Miller on this. So kudos to her and her staff. Also wanted to thank the commission for their help in obtaining our Interstate 29, Interstate 35 build grant. This is a grant we received from the federal government working with KCMO, MARC, and MoDOT. So this will provide much needed funds to start the study of future needs in that area. Actually, they're probably present needs, but they just haven't been fleshed out yet. As always, we advocate for the needs in the Northland, and we do have a long wish list. Just to make sure all these items will be on your radar list. Improvements on I-29 north of 435, M152, safety improvements, traffic congestion mitigation, improving the life and capacity, and also similar issues with 92 and 291. With 291, we'd like to look at the possibility of making this a Super 2 style roadway with improved shoulders, middle turn lanes, and permanent signals. There's been some work done on 291 toward North Oak, and it really makes a huge difference. We want to acknowledge multimodal needs such as trails and transit. We partner with KCATA. We're trying to improve some of the bus routes north of the river. We're very proud of our trail system, but we can always use more help there. One of our partners, Northland Neighborhoods, Inc., wanted to make sure that I mentioned your assistance on Vivian Road, one of the older roads in the Northland, and but it's a state highway. We're appreciative of the cost share that we had on the Platte Purchase interchange on 152. So that's a long list of thank yous, a long list of we need more help, but we really are appreciative of what I believe is just been a terrific partnership between the Northland Chamber, MoDOT, and the Commission. So I wanted to appear today, if nothing more than to thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ford. And I know you said Sheila's there with you. Give her our best wishes. I saw a note that she's planning on retiring later this year. Hi, Sheila.
Hey.
I just wanted to give a shout out to you. I know you're getting ready to retire. I wanted to say hi. So
Thank you. Thank
appreciate your longtime support of the commission. So
certainly appreciate all the relationships that we've built and the things that we've been able to do, and that will just continue. And I look forward to maybe before retiring, maybe we'll have a meeting in person that I can see all of you.
we all hope so, for sure. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Ford? All right. Well, thanks again for being here. Appreciate you taking time and visiting with us.
Thank you.
Pam, do you know if we've been able to hook up with Representative Riggs?
I don't think we have yet. They are dialing in right now, so hold on.
Okay, we'll wait just a minute.
We're a little ahead of schedule for the time that we told them, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, while we're waiting, I think it's, when you look at the engagement of the chamber in the Northland and how focused they are on the infrastructure improvements there, that really does help because they form a really good underpinning for the planning process that we're kicking off. It's already underway and it gets more formalized next week, but that's a great example of how engaged and all the way up through the to the state chamber of commerce. We it's really rewarding, I think, for our teams to work with community leaders like Mr. Ford, like Sheila, and having them understand the economic benefits that come from the transportation investments and how important they are to the regions. I just think it's really a great example of that, and we do see that all over the state. But it also it's kind of fun because it's planning season. It's not planting season for us at MoDOT. It's planning season, and our teams are really hard at work trying to bring a great transportation plan to you for your consideration. But it all starts at the local level and works its way through, and that's what's so great about the Missouri model here, getting it done.
I agree. I might mention, I should have mentioned it during the opening remarks. We've got a lot of people on the call today. I'm showing like 134 right now. But if you have a bunch of gray boxes on your screen, if you go to the Layout tab and click on the button that says Hide Participants with Video Off, that'll get rid of those gray boxes and give you a better picture of those that are on the video. Most of the MoDOT folks had their video turned off, but if you go to the layout box and click Hide Participants with Video Off, that'll give you a better picture. So, Pam, how are we doing? Do we know if we have our representative on the line?
Yep, my understanding is he is on the line and ready.
All right. Well, I'll introduce State Representative Lewis Riggs from the northeast part of the state. Welcome, Representative.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
We hear you.
All right. Thank you. Jay is thrilled. Thank you. And I represent basically the Hannibal area, all of Marion County, all of Shelby County, and the northern basic fourth of Monroe County, including Monroe City. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to discuss the strategic and logistical importance of the Hannibal bypass, which was last studied comprehensively some 25 years ago. The bypass was supposed to have been completed as a part of the Avenue of the Saints. The last funding for that was in 2008, when Highway 61 was finished to the Iowa state line. Today, there are 7 stoplights on the Avenue of the Saints from St. Louis to St. Paul, Minnesota. All of those stoplights are in Hannibal. According to MoDOT, more than 100 Missouri communities have been bypassed, including every other community on US 61 north of I-70 and every other community on US 36 from one end of the state to the other. Now, that number, 79 bypass communities, have less than 10,000 population, and only 8 bypass communities in the state have more population than Hannibal. We don't understand why this is not a priority. For us, the safety of our citizens is a priority. Trucks do not stop in Hannibal unless they're making deliveries, but they do run our 7 red lights on a daily basis. I have personally prosecuted loaded 18-wheelers blowing through the light at 168 Junction across from Tom Boland Ford, Hannibal Grange University, less than a quarter of a mile from Hannibal Middle School and the Huck Finn Shopping Center. Fastest speed I saw was a fully loaded semi going 64 miles an hour through a red light at the Market Street Junction. None of this would be happening if these trucks were not flying through Hannibal. The last comprehensive study did not contemplate 4-laning US 36, which in 1996 was not on the STIP for decades to come. One of your predecessors on the commission, Tom Boland, spearheaded the effort to remedy that, and Marion, Monroe, Shelby, and Macon counties formed a TDD to pay for the 52-mile stretch of 4-lane 36 we now enjoy. We paid that obligation off years in advance due to the increased revenue realized along 36, which, as you know, is a direct route to Kansas City and points west from Chicago without having to travel on I-70. Today, General Mills in Hannibal produces all the Progresso soup in the United States. In order for General Mills to push product south, they face a yield sign and 1 right turn. In order to move product north, they face 7 stoplights. In order to push product east, they face 4 stoplights and a yield sign. In order to push product west, they have the choice of 5 stoplights and a yield on US 36 or cross a Class 1 railroad tracks, take Hannibal City streets, face 2 stop signs, go through an intersection literally marked dangerous intersection, and turn left onto US 36. With a bypass, General Mills faces 2 right turns to move product north and west and 1 right turn to move product south. Governor Parson just noted in the State of the State address that it is high time that Missouri take advantage of its geographical location as a logistics hub, not just for the United States, but for North America. I could not agree more. Northeast Missouri should be a solution to that problem, not a perennial headache. Hannibal has the only stoplights in a toll-free stretch of more than 1,300 miles from the Gulf of Mexico to Duluth, Minnesota, where 61 is only 150 miles from the Canadian border. Sitting astride the junction of routes that travel the length of the United States, north, south, east, and west, paralleling I-70 for 150 miles through the state of Missouri, Hannibal should be a primary focus in the conversation of logistics hubs across Missouri, but we are not, because there is no through route that takes trucks past those 7 stoplights. Neglecting this bypass thereby punishes not just Hannibal, but the entire northeast region of Missouri, and diminishes our ability to serve as a distribution hub on the eastern side of the state, which also deprives us of thousands of jobs. For those reasons, the Hannibal bypass has been the #1 priority of the Mark Twain Regional Council of Government, which comprises 8 counties for many years. I have also produced for your consideration, and should be in your board packets, a letter of support for the Hannibal bypass signed by every stakeholder involved, which includes every county commissioner in Marion and Rawls, a bipartisan group, the nonpartisan mayors of Hannibal and Palmyra, as well as members of the Hannibal Regional Economic Development Transportation Committee, Mark Twain Regional Council of Governments, Hannibal Regional Hospital, members of the Tri-State Development Summit, which has had the Hannibal bypass at the top of the regional list for Northeast Missouri, West Central Illinois, and Southeast Iowa for many years. and letters of support from trucking concerns whose trucks are adversely affected by the lack of a route around Hannibal, including Dot Foods, based in Mount Sterling, Illinois, and Woody Brothers Trucking, based in Troy, Missouri, all of whom send trucks through, not around, Hannibal on a daily basis. Northeast residents have consistently paid for new construction itself throughout Northeast Missouri, as Kirksville did with 63 North from Macon, and as Marion, Monroe, Shelby, and Macon counties did develop the last 52 miles of US 36 from Hannibal to Macon. But we cannot lift a finger or a shovel of dirt until MoDOT supplies the precursor, an engineering study for a bypass that has been neglected for 25 years. We respectfully request that you hear our multiple pleas and take action to move the Hannibal bypass to a priority level for the future of Missouri transportation. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I comment? Tom, are you there?
I'm sorry. I was muted. Thank you, Representative Riggs. And John, go ahead. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, first of all, Representative Riggs comes from a distinguished history because his mother was in my class in high school. Now, in addition to that, I want to say to Representative Riggs, we appreciate your interest in transportation issues for Northeast Missouri particularly, and statewide in general. However, one thing that I think when I say we, I mean you and I and other people in the Northeast Missouri area need to get all of the regional planning commissions that are in the whole Northeast Missouri district to put this project on their list as a high priority item. And if that happens, maybe we've got a better chance of getting this project on the STIP in the very near future. I sure hope so. Lord knows we need it. And MoDOT generally, and I in particular, will continue to work with you any way we can to promote this project, and also for the continuing work for transportation in Northeast Missouri. And thank you so much, Louis.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it.
Any other comments for the representative? I'll just say, I noticed in the backup material the letter signed by Tom Oakley, and I've probably been to the Hamilton area or Hannibal area at least 3 times as a commissioner, and remember Tom and Tom talking about this bypass for many years. And so I would encourage you to keep working, get the regional planning folks on board, and keep pushing for this. And I sure hope we can see this happen in the future. So thanks again for being here.
Thank you. We will do so.
Well, Travis Kessner's our state design engineer. He's going to bring our consideration for bids of the transportation improvements. Travis, there you are. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Waters, Commission, Director McKenna. I'm bringing to you today the results of the January 22nd, 2021 bid opening, in which MoDOT received 155 bids on 41 separate calls. We recommend the following to you today, and that is to award all calls to the lowest responsive bidder, except for calls A02 and A03 located in the Northwest District. We recommend rejections of calls A02 and A03 due to excessive bids per section 102.15 of the Missouri Standard Specifications for Highway Construction. Those are our recommendations to you today.
Are there any questions or comments for Travis? Is there a motion to approve the bids with the exception of the 2?
Motion made.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the bids as recommended by Travis. All in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed, the same sign? Great. You'll stand approved. Travis, do you have a budget report for us
Yes, I do. Thank you for the focus on bridge projects. We had 7 of those today. That brings our total to 151 bridges for $165.5 million, and we're just about $800,000 over budget for those jobs. Overall, as of right now, for fiscal year 21, that has our awards at around $410 million, and they're about $53 million under budget. But of course, the next step is the Roadsport Bridge. That'll change those total report numbers depending on that action after today. So,
Great, thank you, Travis. Good work. It's great to see the projects getting done. So
I think I said Roadsport, Buck O'Neill Bridge. All right, thank you.
yeah. Speaking of the Buck O'Neill Bridge, what a segue. Good job, Travis. Well, I think the one that we've all been waiting for today, I'm going to turn it over to Ed Hassinger, the Chief Deputy Engineer, and Mary Miller, the Project Manager for the Buck O'Neill Bridge. And guys, we're anxious to hear what you have to say today.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we're really excited to bring this to you. I just want to do a little setup here. We started talking about doing design build at MoDOT in about 2000. We decided this was a tool we needed to develop some complex projects. And so we went to the legislature in the mid 2000s to get permission because we didn't have the authority to do it under state statute. And they gave us authority to do 3 projects as a pilot. Those were so successful that Jay and his team later went back to the legislature and asked that we could get permission to do up to 2% of our projects, of the total projects in the state, using the design build model. And I want to be real clear here is that, we make a real big deal about making sure that we only use the design build process where it really makes a difference. And so we do a detailed risk assessment of the project delivery method, and then we bring that to you for your approval to move forward with a design build project. And I just note today in your consent agenda, you approved the authority for us to move forward with another design build bundle of bridges on I-44. And that'll be another one we'll be bringing to you later. To date, we've done in the last 15 years, we've done 18 projects with design build. Now, some of those are big and some of them were small, but a total of $2 billion in program value over the last 15 years for some pretty complex projects that have all been successful. So the next thing that we really do is find a great leader to lead these complicated projects. So Dave Sylvester and his team in Kansas City went about the process of finding a project director. And you all have heard from the director, and I think you have said it, that Mary Miller was selected to do that, and she has done a fabulous job. One of the other things that we do is I transfer the authority of the chief engineer to our project director. And I think that's important because that gives the teams that are competing for these jobs kind of the confidence that the decisions that get made as they're procuring this job don't get second guessed. So they know when Mary tells them this is how we feed, that's how we do it. And it gets us the best innovation and it gives us the best speed of delivery. And those are 2 hallmarks of design build. So with that, I'm thrilled to turn the floor over to Mary Miller, our project director, and her fabulous team that has done a really bang up job here. So Mary, if you'll take it away.
Thank you, Ed. Chairman Waters, Commissioners, Director McKenna. I do have a PowerPoint. I think they need to load that up. Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here today to present our recommendation for the best value design for the Buck O'Neill Bridge Design Build Project. Next slide, please. I would like to recognize some of the team members who have contributed to the success of the Buck O'Neill project. I'm Mary Miller, I'm the project director. Matt Dalton is our deputy project director. Carly Covington is our project team coordinator. Jordan Swing is also a project team coordinator. Courtney Lago is our administrative technician. Perry Allen has been our project sponsor. and Joshua Scott is our traffic and safety advisor. Also, James Wong from the city has been our city representative, and as stated before, this is a 50-50 partnership between MoDOT and Kansas City, so he's been a big help with that. And then also Julie Sarson, our owner engineer from Burns and McDonnell, has functioned as our bridge representative. Next slide, please. This project is located in downtown Kansas City, Missouri, in the northwest corner of the downtown loop. It runs from just north of the downtown airport and heads south over the river and ties into Broadway downtown and I-35 on the west side of the downtown loop. The purpose of the project is to facilitate the safe movement of people and goods along the US 169 corridor while improving mobility, connectivity, and accessibility across the Missouri River. The needs on the project include maintaining the infrastructure, including addressing the physical condition of the historic Buck O'Neill Bridge, maintaining a reliable regional transportation linkage across the Missouri River that services local and regional traffic and minimizes local traffic conflicts, and improving the operational and safety performance of the Missouri River crossing for all transportation modes. Next slide, please. The project goals were developed based on the purpose and needs of the project. They are as follows. Number one, construct a new Missouri River bridge that can be reasonably maintained and will provide a century of service within the program budget. Number two, provide a safe, connected, and accessible transportation facility that improves system performance. Number three, minimize the impact to the traveling public during construction. 4, complete the project by December 1st, 2024, utilizing a diverse workforce. And the contract amount was $219,353,000, and this was a fixed price best value contract. Next slide, please. The Dbe goals on the project are 14% for construction activities and 18% for professional service activities. The workforce diversity goals on the project were 12.7% minority per craft, 6.9% female per craft, and included on-the-job training requirements of 7 positions at 1,000 hours each, including 6 construction and 1 professional services. Next slide, please. There were 3 pre-qualified teams that submitted proposals on the project. They are American Bridge, with major participants American Bridge Company, Parsons Transportation Group, and Rodmacher Brothers Excavating Company. Massman Clarkson, a joint venture including Massman Construction Company, Clarkson Construction Company, and H&TB Corporation. And Trailer Ames joint venture including Trailer Brothers, Ames Construction, Jacobs Engineering Group, and Garver. Next slide, please. The project was scored based on the following categories: project definition, which includes the Missouri River Bridge, system performance, other structures, and urban design. This was worth 65 points. Project safety was worth 20 points. Maintenance of traffic and schedule were worth 15 points for a total of 100 points. Next slide, please. So the first proposal is American Bridge. Their proposal includes a new Missouri River Bridge structure with 2 lanes northbound and 2 lanes southbound, and a 10-foot shared use path on the west side of the bridge. It also includes access improvements to the Harlem Road roundabout at the downtown airport and access improvements at the north side of the downtown airport. On the south side of the river, shown in the top photo, are direct connections between US 169 and I-35. The compact connections run just adjacent to existing Broadway. The connection southbound onto Broadway downtown will be accommodated using a new loop around 5th Street and 3rd Street west of Broadway, including a new signal at 5th Street and Beardsley Road. Construction closures on the project for southbound 169 is 305 days, and closure of northbound 169 is 275 days. Urban design on the project includes a bike ped path across the river, decorative light bridge lighting, decorative bridge railing, scenic overlooks, and a Buck O'Neill statue and plaque. The construction completion date for this proposal is October 31st, 2024. Next slide, please. The Mastermind-Clarkson joint venture proposal includes 2 river bridge structures with 2 lanes northbound and 2 lanes southbound, and a 10-foot shared use path on the east side of the bridge. Access improvements are included at the Harlem Road roundabout at the downtown airport, the central airport entrance, and at the north side of the airport. On the south side of the river, there are 45-mile-per-hour direct connections southbound and northbound between US 169 and I-35. Direct access is provided to and from Broadway at the south end of the Missouri River Bridge. City street access is improved by the realignment of 3rd Street, 5th Street, and Beardsley Road west of Broadway. Construction closures on the project include 616 days for southbound 169 and 0 days for northbound 169. Urban design on the project includes a bike ped path across the river, decorative color changing bridge lighting, decorative bridge railing, a scenic overlook, and murals. The construction completion date for this proposal is 12/1/2024. Next slide, please. The Trailer Ames joint venture proposal includes a single river bridge structure with 3 lanes northbound and 2 lanes southbound and a 10-foot shared use path on the west side of the bridge. No access improvements are included north of the river at the downtown airport. On the south side of the river, there are direct connections between US 169 and I-35. Northbound has a 35-mile-per-hour speed limit, and southbound has a 45-mile-per-hour speed limit. Direct access is provided to and from Broadway at the south end of the Missouri River Bridge. City street access is improved through the use of a roundabout shown in the top photo that ties 5th Street, 3rd Street, and Beardsley Road together and provides access to I-35 and I-70. Construction closures include 240 days for southbound 169, 240 days for northbound 169, and also reduces I-70 eastbound to 1 lane for 150 days and westbound for 90 days. Urban design on the project includes a bike ped path across the river, Buck O'Neill banners on the bridge lighting, decorative bridge railing, and a scenic overlook. The construction completion date for this proposal is 11/1/2024. Next slide, please. Our recommended best value design is Mastermind-Clarkson, a joint venture. Shown here is a fly-through simulation of the recommended best value design. Please play the video. Next slide, please. Improvements included in the recommended best value design south of the river are 45-mile-per-hour direct connections between US 169 and I-35, improvements to the city street network, replacement of the I-35 and I-70 loop bridges over 6th Street, and new direct connections to Broadway going into downtown. Next, please. Improvements included in the recommended best value design. I don't think it got, next slide, please. Improvements included, okay, sorry. Improvements included north of the river are 2 new bridges over the Missouri River with a 10-foot shared use path that ties into Richards Road on the north side of the river and the Riverfront Trail on the south side of the river. Also included are access improvements at the downtown airport and replacement of the southbound approach bridge to the Missouri River. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. We request the commission approve our recommendation of Mastermind Clarkson, a joint venture, as the best value proposer, and authorize the director, deputy director, chief engineer, assistant chief engineer, or the designee to negotiate and execute a contract subject to approval as deformed by the chief counsel's office with Mastermind Clarkson, a joint venture, and approve the payment of $1 million stipend to the unsuccessful proposing teams. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Are there any comments or questions for Mary?
I would just say, Mr. Chairman, how exciting. Nothing like a big $200 million bridge to get an engineer going in the morning. So congratulations, Mary, to you and your team. And my first 2 jobs out of college were bridges, which I said I never wanted to work on again. But if you need help with the slump test up there, I'll run that slump test for you. You still do slump test?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And I'll help clean up Bob's mess when he does that test.
Congratulations to you and your team. This is wonderful.
Any other comments? Is there a motion to approve the bid as recommended by the team?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Massman Construction on this project. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, the same sign? The motion carries. And I remember when we approved the Washington Bridge, there was a big yippee in the audience. So since we don't have an audience gathered, you get a yippee from me. So congratulations. Well, I want to thank the other teams, the other bidders. I know it takes a lot of work, time, and effort. And I just really looking forward to driving across this bridge in a few years. So thanks again, everybody. Patrick, did you want to weigh in on any of that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I think you can see, Mary's leadership on this, and I'm glad you recognize the other teams. We were really thrilled with the responses. There were very creative designs laid out, different perspectives, and in all cases, I think all the teams, as has been our good fortune with design build, have brought a lot to the table. And the department learns from this as well, and tries to incorporate these good ideas and new innovations into the other projects that we do. But this is really a long time coming, and it's good to get to this point. It's critical. We're just a few years removed from having to do an emergency structure repair on the existing bridge. And boy, I tell you, the inconvenience to the whole community when we had that bridge shut down, even temporarily, really gave us a good window as to what the future could be if we didn't get this over the top. And I will say, and want to recognize again, the city of Kansas City is the reason we're here today. Their leadership in bringing resources forward, that helped us leverage other federal dollars to bring to bear. They are the primary reason for this success, and we really appreciate that working relationship and their leadership.
I agree. Thank you, Patrick. This is a big deal for the whole community on both sides of the bridges. So it's been a long time coming. It's a lot of excitement. So thank you, everybody, and all those involved should give themselves a pat on the back as well. So, well, Misty Volker's our Audits and Investigation Director. She's going to talk to us today about the enterprise risk management. Misty, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, the floor is yours.
All right. I'm waiting for the presentation to load.
Okay.
Sorry.
I was going to say, I see you.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director McKenna. In 2013, the Commission adopted an enterprise risk management or ERM policy that requires the department to have an ERM system and provide an annual report to the Commission at the beginning of each calendar year. I am presenting that report to you today for calendar year 2020. Next slide, please. Enterprise risk management is an organization's evolving strategy for identifying, assessing, and managing the overall risks of an organization. Next slide, please. In 2019, the ERM process was modified to eliminate ranking risk categories. Senior management team members, which includes executive staff, district engineers, and division leaders, completed a risk assessment sheet after having an opportunity to discuss the risk ranking with their management staff. These are the overall results from those rankings. Each ranking category was to be considered equally and separately from other risk categories. Prior to 2019, the categories were risked in a rank order from 1 to 10. However, we want to review the risks and rank them individually and separately as to not allow one risk to be considered more highly than another when evaluating our risk process. We had each risk category scored from 1 to 5 in 3 areas. The first being preparedness, from 0 unprepared to 5 plans in place and tested. Likelihood, from little chance at 0 to fairly certain at 5. And then impact, from little to devastating, again on a 0 to 5 scale. With those results, next slide, please, we placed those items on a heat map. Next slide, please. Thank you. The heat map identifies areas that may require additional monitoring or controls for improvement by evaluating the risk in terms of the risk exposure. The heat map visually displays where SMT members assessed organizational risk. And each risk category was also evaluated to determine if the risk was being monitored or assessed within our tracker, focus, or planned internal audit procedures. It's noteworthy in this situation to mention that in some way, all of these risks were monitored or assessed by tracker, focused, or planned internal audit procedures. As the heat map shows, workforce is the risk category that SMT members assessed with the highest risk exposure, along with being the risk we're least prepared for. And as you move on the heat map from the bottom right to the top left, that is where we need to look and assess what we're doing to manage the risk and improve or monitor controls. Next slide, please. I think in the current environment, it's hard to not talk about the pandemic in terms of organizational risk management. I know you've heard a lot about the pandemic throughout the course of the past about approximately 12 months. But MoDOT's primary mission in the event of a pandemic is to provide personnel, equipment, and necessary material to ensure continuous performance of MoDOT's mission-critical functions. MoDOT implemented a variety of strategies to respond to the pandemic, which include remote work, shared work, and following best practices to stop the spread of the virus. It's important to note that a pandemic is part of our enterprise risk management process and is within the natural disasters section in our categories. When we talk about the workforce category, it's important to note some of the items that are important for that. And with regard to the pay structure at MoDOT, we continue to present pay strategies to address market concerns, improve retention and recruitment, and improve employee engagement. The pandemic brought unique challenges with hiring, and Human Resources was able to move to virtual hiring and onboarding, and the department continued to look for ways to manage that risk. The employee turnover information was provided by Human Resources, and as of January 12th of 2021, the overall turnover was 11.7%, with a first-year turnover of a fiscal year to date of 22.6%. The department continues to look for ways to improve those numbers through retention and recruitment and improved employee engagement. And while this concludes the 2020 report, ERM process continues as we look to identify, assess, and monitor organizational risk. I would be happy to answer any questions you have about our 2020 risk assessment process.
Thank you, Misty. Are there questions or comments for Misty?
Not really a question, just kind of a comment, Tom. It's interesting to see the slight change in rankings each year as the department adjusts to varying issues of the day. But, you know, the big risk items are predictable, and that's workforce. It's been strong, number one, since day one. We've talked about it, and it continues to be. So it's very concerning, but it is the number one.
Any other comments? All right. Thank you, Misty.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
Yes, you too.
Well, I'm going to go from Misty to Missy and welcome Missy Studall. She's our External Civil Rights Director. If you've been following our meetings the last several months, we just went through a round of informational presentations about our different districts across the state. And now we're going to dive in a round of presentations at the division level. And Missy got the first up on that one. So we're going to talk about our External Civil Rights Division. Missy, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Waters, Commissioners, Director McKenna. I am the Director of the External Civil Rights Division, and I'm happy to be the first one to present on the division updates. Next slide, please. As you can see from the slide, our team consists of 12 full-time employees. We have a director, a manager, 7 specialists, 2 technicians, and 1 executive assistant. We currently have employees located in St. Louis, Kansas City, and Jefferson City, Missouri. Our current districts that we cover, we actually cover all 7 districts, even though we only have employees located in these 3 districts. Next slide, please. The Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program is one of the many focus areas of the External Civil Rights Division. The DBE programs can compete fairly with other firms in the transportation industry. Another focus area is the on-the-job training program, and the goal of this program is to train minority, female, and economically disadvantaged individuals in the heavy highway industry. Another key focus is our Workforce Diversity Program. The goal of the Workforce Diversity Program is to help ensure MoDOT construction projects are reflecting the communities we are serving throughout MoDOT's 7 districts. MoDOT is responsible for ensuring that contractors are meeting or demonstrating towards diversity and inclusion. Another area that we focus on is the Title VI and Americans with Disabilities Act. Under Title VI, there's no discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin as it relates to all of our program areas. And the Americans with Disability Act focuses on pedestrians with disability and ensuring that they have equal access to our fleet. One of the main focus areas that you probably hear about a lot is the Dbe Certification Process. And so in order for our firm to be certified with MoDOT, they have to go through a process where they submit an application with supporting documentation. Some of the supporting documentation that they're required to submit is a detailed application, bylaws, business tax returns, financials, equipment list, and other corporate documents. After we receive all this information, if the firm is located in Missouri, we are required to go to that location of the business and conduct an on-site review. Of course, due to COVID, we had to do some revisions to that. We're not going to the actual physical location of the business. We are conducting Zoom meetings or other web-based platforms where we ask the owner of the firm various questions. They show us pictures of their equipment they may have. We also rely on some of the project information that we pull from our construction teams that they've been on projects on to review their eligibility into the program. And as you can see on the last point of the slide is an annual no change affidavit. So if a firm becomes certified with MoDOT, the next step each year they have to do is to complete an annual affidavit where we review the tax returns and making sure there's no changes to that firm's ownership. Next slide, please. As of December 31st, 2020, MoDOT had a total of 1,260 certified DBE firms in our directory. MoDOT is required to maintain 277 of those firms. We do have other partner agencies throughout the state that also certifies firms, but we maintain 277 of those firms. So of that 1,260 number, not all those firms can conduct business on our heavy highway projects. Some of those firms do vertical construction, janitorial services, and other non-heavy highway related job functions. And so I would say there's probably more like 500 firms that could potentially do work from construction, and that also includes consulting firms. So we have a wide variety of firms that are listed in that directory. Next slide, please. So one of the things that you've seen on the Buckle Mill Bridge was the DBE goals. So one thing that we do is we set DBE goals on design build projects like you saw, as well as we look at each project individually to determine a DBE goal. As you can see on the slide, those are some of the criteria that we use to set the goal to determine the actual percentage on the project. And under subcontracting opportunities, those are the typical items that we see DBE firms performing work on our regular MoDOT projects. And just to give you an example of how many projects that we have reviewed during the calendar year, our division has reviewed over 675 projects for DBE goals. And again, that includes construction and consultant projects. Next slide, please. In conjunction with the project-specific goals, every 3 years, MoDOT is required to set an overall DBE goal outlining how much DBE participation we expect to receive on all our projects in all our 7 districts. As you can see from this slide, the overall goal is set separately for each of the 3 US DOT administrative operating agencies. Currently, our FHWA goal is 12.45%. That's where you see the MoDOT construction projects that we typically let on LPA as well. FAA is more of the airport type services, and so that's relatively the same as the FHWA goal. But FTA, you can see that it's only 1.04%. There's just very little DBE subcontracting opportunities that are available for the DBE firms to perform on transit type projects, and so that's why that goal is so small. Next slide, please. So to help the DBEs, once you get them certified and you get them through the process and you set goals on the projects, one of the other things we do is try to provide services for those DBEs. So the Federal Highway Administration gives MoDOT funding and other DOTs as well to provide services to DBEs such as training opportunities, assistance, capacity building. And so that's what these funds are used for. And MoDOT has been participating in the DBE Supported Services Program through Federal Highway since 2007. Since 2007, we have received 194 DBE firms that have graduated from that DBE Supported Services Program. And what we do for that funding, we actually RFP the funding to vendors, and they actually train or provide services to the DBEs outside of MoDOT. And so currently we have 2 vendors that are working, one in St. Louis and one in Kansas City. So as you can see from the slide, of those 194 firms that have graduated, from January 1st, 2016 to December 31st, 2020, we have awarded over $31 million to those DBE firms and contracts. Next slide, please. So we'll shift gears from the DBE program and talk a little bit about workforce. So the on-the-job training program, the intent of that program is to train minority, female, and economically disadvantaged individuals into the heavy highway industry. We're focused on our jobs as external, so we're working with the contractors to making sure that they actually carry out these job functions. As a part of that program, they provide job site training as well as classroom training for new individuals that want to become a part of the heavy highway industry. And we also set, like we set DBE goals, we also set on the job training goals on projects to help provide opportunities to new workers on the projects for the contractors. In calendar year 2020, we set a total of 32 trainee goals on all of our MoDOT projects. Now that does not include our design build projects like the Buck O'Neill project. We actually set separate goals for those, and those are not in the overall total. Next slide, please. So similar to the DBE supportive services program, we also have on-the-job training supportive services that we also received from Federal Highway since 2000. I'm happy to say that we're still receiving that funding on a yearly basis. And from 2000 to 2020, our DBE supportive services, OJT supportive services partners have graduated over 1,529 individuals from those programs and have placed over 788 of those on projects. In addition to the supportive services, some of the things that these organizations focus on for these graduates, they provide them with CPR first aid training, OSHA 30 certification, flagger certifications, as well as helping them obtain their commercial driver's licenses. Next slide, please. In conjunction with the OJT program and the workforce diversity, again, we're talking about their external contractors. In order to ensure that contractors are maintaining a diverse workforce on our federally funded projects, our division monitors workforce diversity on federal aid projects. ECR monitors the projects to ensure that we are actually serving, the employees are actually reflective of the communities we're serving. And so we monitor those types of things. And so the workforce goals that we use, that you see in this chart, are actually established by the Office of Federal Contract Compliance. And so they provide us guidance of what each district looks like as far as the makeup of the workforce utilization. So in 2015, MoDOT began a pilot workforce construction program where we said we're going to review a select number of projects to see if the contractors are meeting the workforce goals on the projects. And so of the projects we selected, 181 have been completed and 64 ongoing. So the totals you see on the slide are reflective of those numbers. So the statewide goal for all counties in Missouri is 7.6% minority. So that's our target. And it's 6.9% female. As of November 30th, 2020, we have 13.9% minority utilization and 5.3% female utilization. And when we do the workforce diversity program, it includes all crafts utilized on the project, and that could be engineers, your iron workers, your carpenters, as well as office staff. Next slide, please. MoDOT's External Civil Rights Division is also responsible for implementing Title VI in the Americans with Disabilities Act. Title VI Act, Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin as it relates to any program areas that receive federal funding. Another area that we focus on is environmental justice. Under this program, we ensure that participation by affected areas is diverse and that we're not going through one community versus a higher class community. So we do studies to make sure that's not occurring. And so we do some evaluations and help the right-of-way team with those types of activities. We also focus on limited English proficiency, which is known as LEP. And this program outlines that individuals are entitled to a language assistance as it relates to our program areas. So this may be, could include providing translation services if we have a public meeting where we know that someone does not speak English. This also would include us translating any of our documents from another language other than English if it's requested. The Americans with Disability Act ensures that pedestrians with disabilities have an equal opportunity to public right-of-way and access. So our division, if there's any titles, ADA complaints, our division actually reviews those. We'll go out to the location, look at what's occurring, get statements from the complainant as well as the entity that could be complaining. So we take a look at all that and make a final determination. So as you can see, our division covers many different areas. I wasn't able to list all the areas to stay within my time constraints, but wanted to focus on the main parts that we really work on. I'm really proud of our 12-member team. They're very hardworking and dedicated to the division. They wear many hats. As you can see, one day they may be doing certifications, they could be doing a complaint, or they may be setting a goal. And so our main focus is really to ensure that the highway contractors have a diverse and inclusive workforce. Some of the main areas, again, we hit are trying to assist minority and female workers into the transportation industry, assisting DBE so that they have a level playing field to compete with other contractors on our projects, and to ensure federal compliance with all the regulations that we have to have oversight over. One thing I'm really grateful for is the support from the executive team as well as the commission. Without your all support, really understanding the program, asking questions, we wouldn't be able to do the jobs that we need to do to carry out the functions to making sure diversity and inclusion is actually on our heavy highway projects, not only internal workforce. And that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Missy. Are there any questions or comments for Missy? Well, you lucked out. You're
Yes.
a quiet group today, Missy. Well, your group covers a lot of ground. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
We appreciate everything you do. So thank you for taking time to put your presentation together and to present to us.
Thank you.
Question.
Yeah, Bob.
Missy, I see your statewide minority utilization is much higher than your goal. Is that mostly workmen on the jobs?
Yes, and so that 7.6% is statewide. You'll see, like, for example, in St. Louis, you'll have more of a 14.7% utilization and 12.9% depending on the county. And if you come to Jefferson City, the goals are 6.3%. And so it's an average of all of those. So the highest goal that we have in the counties throughout Missouri is 26.7%. And that's actually in the Boot Hill, Pennscott, and Dunklin County. And so that's our highest concentration of workforce diversity goals. And next to that would be St. Louis, and then over to Kansas City. And then when you get to the rural areas, it gets between 5 and 9%.
So it's from the subcontractors then?
No, it's from everybody, all workers on the primes and subcontractors and DBEs, all workers on the project.
Yeah, that's great. That's kind of in line with what I remember we saw about 2 years ago too. So keep it up.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? Great. Thank you, Missy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Missy.
Our next presentation is going to be on the fiscal year 2021 affirmative action plan. And Rudy Nickens is an Equal Opportunity and Diversity Director. Rudy, good to see you.
Good afternoon. Good to see you as well. Chairman Waters, Commissioners, and Director McKenna, I am very happy to be here to present this update on the annual affirmative action plan that the department is required to file each year with the Office of Federal Contracting Compliance. Just like Missy just described the relationship between MoDOT being monitored by the federal government on the DBE program, we also have to report on our internal numbers. So this plan that we do it in the Equal Opportunity and Diversity Division focuses only on MoDOT's workforce. And we report on the numbers of women and minorities who are employed throughout the department. Now, the annual affirmative action plan is really a look back. It describes the numbers for the last period of time, what we did in the last year. But we use this as a guide for management to look at where we have opportunities to make improvements in the future. So the numbers that you're about to hear, or the data you're about to hear, is about the fiscal year that ended, that just recently ended. They're on a calendar year. So I'm going to introduce to you Becky Britsky. I think most of you have met Becky before. She has been seen at commission meetings and other places in her capacity as an American Sign Language interpreter, and she has interpreted at commission meetings and other MODOT functions. But today she's here. She's one of two people in my division who are certified to write and review affirmative action plans. So Becky's going to walk us through the data of the current affirmative action plan. It's a high-level look, and we'll be happy to take questions when she's done. So welcome, Becky, and thank you for commissioners for this time.
Hello, Commissioner or Chairman Waters. I'm excited to be here today to present to you. As a reminder, the Affirmative Action Plan is designed to prevent discriminatory employment practices and ensure equal opportunity. We monitor the proactive, action-oriented programs for recruiting and retaining minorities and women. It is overseen largely by the Office of Federal Contracting and Compliance, also known as the OFCCP. They are the ones that establish kind of the requirements for the plan and the ones that would audit us if we were ever audited. But as a DOT, of course, we are also responsible to the Federal Highway Administration. So they review the plan just to make sure basically that we are in compliance since we do receive that federal funding. Next slide, please. I'll be covering 5 areas of the plan today: placement goals, incumbency versus estimated availability, adverse impact, discipline, and grievances. Next slide, please. The placement goals for FY21 are on the right-hand side of your screen. So we currently have 4 placement goals in Job Group A, officials and administrators for minorities, Job Group A, officials and administrators for females, Job Group F, which is office and clerical staff for minorities, and Job Group G, skilled craft workers for minorities as well. You can see compared to the plan from last year that we met the goal or we're within 80% of the goal for the minority job group paraprofessionals. So that is why the FY21 plan does not have that placement goal on it. Next slide, please. This is a comparison of the total incumbency for the department. These numbers are pulled as of June 30th. So the FY21 plan numbers that you see here were pulled June 30th of 2020. And you can see there are 4 areas that are highlighted yellow. So this is an indication of underutilization, which simply means that we are below 80% of the availability for individuals within those particular job groups. That is both internal and external availability. They get factored together to create one availability number. So it shows that we are currently, again, below 80% of what is available to us to work for the department in those respective areas. Next slide, please. Adverse impact reports. We look at the hiring of people over the last year and compare the rate of selection for both minorities compared to white applicants and both male compared to female applicants. And an adverse impact occurs when that selection rate is 80% less than the comparison group. So you can see for the minority and white adverse impact report, there are 5 areas of underutilization for minorities, which indicates that their selection rate was below 80% of the selection rate for white applicants to those same job groups. And then you can see in job group H, there was actually a adverse impact for white applicants, suggesting that we heavily favored minority applicants in the service maintenance area or job group compared to favoring white applicants in the higher level positions. Next slide, please. The adverse impact report for looking at males compared to females during the selection rate in the application process shows that there is actually only one area where we saw an adverse impact for women. And again, that is a selection rate less than 80% compared to their male counterparts in the application process. And that is for the job group B, professionals. And they were selected at a rate of 60%. And then you can see in the technicians, paraprofessionals, and office and clerical, there was actually a adverse impact against the male applicants, suggesting that we favored females in the lower level office positions in the department. Next slide. Discipline and grievances. Important thing to note here is that minorities were disciplined at a rate roughly 3 times higher than their white peers in the department. And you can see the minority discipline rate was at 18% compared to their total employment versus the white employees were only disciplined at a rate of 5% compared to their total employment. Male compared to female disciplinary actions were almost even. The number of grievances filed in the FY20 plan were 19. In the FY21 plan, it shows 36. So just slightly less than doubling in when it comes to grievances and complaints being filed against the department. Next slide. That is all I have for the statistical parts. There are more statistical analysis, but those are the high level ones that we wanted to cover today.
Thank you, Becky. And commissioners, if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Rebecca or Rudy? Well, it's a quiet group today. Rebecca, thank you. We appreciate you being here. Rudy, good to see you.
It's always good to see you. I look forward to the next time.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to our Chief Financial Officer, Brenda Morris, and Assistant Chief Engineer, Eric Schroeder. Do we have Brenda? There's Brenda, and there's Eric. Welcome, guys.
Good afternoon.
We'll talk about the financial forecast update. And I know Patrick's told us that this is an ever-changing target. So what do you have for us, guys?
All righty. We should have a presentation. And there it is. So good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners, Director McKenna. Today I'll be providing an update to the financial forecast that I shared with you just last month. And Eric Schrader, our Assistant Chief Engineer, is going to be discussing a few programs associated with these updates. This discussion is the starting point for the development of our statewide Transportation Improvement Program, or our STIP. The STIP will detail our capital spending plans for the next 5 years. The STIP is updated annually. However, last year was an exception. Given the uncertainty of revenues because of the pandemic, no update was made last year. MoDOT will host a meeting with planning partners on February 10th as part of that STIP development process. Next slide, please. This graph may look familiar. I shared it with you last month and kind of wanted to start where we were kind of at the end of the presentation last month. The red line shows revenues, the blue line shows disbursements, and the green line shows the ending cash balance in the state road fund. You will recall that the revenue line represented a total decrease of $148.6 million compared to—
Matt Slaughter was texting me. He was like, ooh, good.
Someone needs to mute,
That was really
please.
good. I don't know why you—
Rudy, I think you need to mute, please. Thank you. You will recall that the revenue line represented a total decrease of $148.6 million compared to the previous forecast for the time period 2022 through 2026. Of that amount, state revenues decreased $231.7 million, while federal revenue increased $62.4 million due to receipt of some one-time federal funds, including some emergency relief funds. Disbursements for the same time period decreased to $145.9 million due to reduced, actually more refined spending assumptions for the local public agency program as well as other state agencies. The cash balance was expected to climb from $657 million at the end of fiscal year 2021 to $252 million at the end of fiscal year 2026. Based on discussions with the Commission and some additional action taken by Congress, we've made some modifications to the financial forecast. Next slide. Okay, we've made changes to the forecast for 3 major items. First, one of the scenarios provided to the Commission at the workshop last month was a plan to establish a repeatable bonding program for Amendment 3 revenues, which are dedicated to the repayment of debt. Starting in 2023, the Commission would issue $500 million of bonds with an expected term of 10 years. Every 3 or 4 years thereafter, the Commission would again issue another $500 million of bonds. For this forecast, we've placed that next issuance after 2023 in the 2026 year. When we get closer to 2026, we'll want to reevaluate that to ensure that that is the correct year that we want to issue that debt. Because the 2023 issuance would impact the first 3 years of the planning cycle, we thought it was important to go ahead and include this into our planning process now. This increases the amount of contractor awards to a point that we must also increase some of the related costs associated with administering a larger program. In response, we increased the number of staff we have by 2%, or approximately 100 employees, and have also increased the assumptions for spending for design bridge consultants who actually design the construction projects and for right-of-way needed for those additional projects. Of course, we've also included the corresponding debt service payments. Second, in December, Congress passed the COVID Relief Act. This act contained $10 billion for Department of Transportation's to help restore current and future highway user revenue lost due to the pandemic. The COVID Relief Act brings $234.8 million to Missouri, with $28.5 million of that being suballocated to large urban areas. Last, we've added some monies to this forecast from funds that became available because CARES Act monies were redirected for some expenses paid by highway user fees. These are the funds that allowed the Commission last month to reinstate projects for the Governor's Cost Share Program. We've added an additional $48 million of these funds. I'm going to turn it over to Eric Schrader to talk about a few of the programs that will utilize these funds.
Thank you, Brenda. Next slide, please. So as we've talked in the past commission meetings about asset management and the deficits that are visible in there. So we're going to talk about 2 components here, our STIP, which is our capital projects, and our operating budget as well. So I want to first talk about what we're going to do through the STIP. So in 2017, we started having $10 million a year available that we were allocating towards asset management to help districts that weren't meeting the goal or didn't have enough resources to. That is set to expire in 2022. So we're going to request that we continue that, but continue it with a little bit different focus and a little more intensive focus on closing the gap of making sure that citizens across Missouri have a similar experience on similar types of roads. And right now we don't have that. As we talked at previous commission meetings, you've seen the range of our condition. So this is targeted at minor and low volume roads. In the backup information, in Appendix 3 specifically, there's a more detailed explanation of the formula. I won't go through all of it, I just give you the high points of it. What we've done is take a look at districts that are not able to meet the goal and also don't have any flexible funds available to shift towards it. We then are using the lane miles of poor, low volume and minor roads to allocate those funds to those districts, to each of those districts through the STIP process. So that's the first piece. The second piece is the asset management deficit through the maintenance operations program. Now remember, operating budget takes care of everything from plowing snow to mowing the grass to striping and patching and putting up signs. So this is also where a key component of our low volume road maintenance comes from, is from our internal forces. In this area, since 2013, we've been using a formula to distribute the funds to the districts in their yearly allocation. In 2017, we started to make an adjustment in that area, targeting some funds towards asset management. What we were doing was from 5 of the southern districts, we were taking $200,000 each to then provide $500,000 to each of the northern districts to help with this closing the gap. That has been a significant amount of money over time, but it hasn't been enough. So what we're recommending is we cease that program and replace that with $15 million a year in 2022, FY23, and then $12,500,000 in 24. Using somewhat of a similar formula that's also included in the appendix for distributing that to the districts, looking at specifically the miles that are in poor condition and also districts that can't meet that goal. So we're actually targeting those funds a little more intensively towards closing this gap. What this does provide is $72 million, $72.5 million over a 3-year period that allows us to really target some funds to address condition deficits in these areas. And it's allocated out to each district over the next 3 years. We think we can make some significant progress doing this to start closing that gap, so to make sure that people across Missouri have a similar experience on similar types of roadways. The third piece on the slide here I want to talk briefly about is the Commission Cost Share Program and making some changes to it. In this area specifically, the cost share, what we'd be recommending changing is the amount of money that's set aside for economic development and changing that from 10% to 20%. Our staff is currently working on all the details to make that happen, and we will be bringing that to you probably in the April timeframe. One thing to keep in mind with the cost share is that it's 2024 before there's funds available. This program is very well used, and the projects are already in the pipeline to be done. So it's a few years before funds are available to make this happen. So we'll be bringing this to you in April to talk about the specifics. But the core piece here is changing that first component of the economic development set aside. The other thing is that we'll request staff continue to look for any policies or procedures that need to be changed to implement these programs, and we'll bring you any of those changes as well. And with that, I'll hand it back to Brenda.
Thanks, Eric. Next slide, please. This graph shows all the changes that we've made in the revised forecast. Again, the red line shows revenues, including bond proceeds. The blue shows disbursements, and the green line shows the ending cash balance. For the 2022 to 2026 time period, the same time period for the next step, between the January and February forecast, revenues have been increased a little over $1.1 billion. Disbursements increased by a similar amount. The cash balance is expected to decline from $778 million in 2021 to $296 million in 2027. Next slide. This shows the impact of these changes to contractor awards. You'll recall when comparing contractor awards from the previous year's forecast to the January forecast, we saw very little change. Those are represented by the blue and green lines on this graph. The red line represents the contractor awards associated with the February forecast. From the changes we discussed today, this adds an additional $800 million in contractor awards for the time period of 2022 through 2026. And that is good news. Next slide, please. As we've mentioned before, all these steps fit together like a puzzle. The next step in the process is to take this information included in this financial forecast and begin the development of the STIP and the department's budget. We anticipate bringing you drafts of those spending plans at the May Commission meeting. And with that, Eric and I would be glad to answer any questions.
Great. A lot of good news in there, Brenda, Eric. Are there any questions or comments for Brenda or Eric? Everybody's got things to do this afternoon, I think. Patrick?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has been a tremendous amount of work by the team. Brenda and Todd and the financial services team, Eric and Eric Curdy in the transportation planning group. They've really sharpened the pencils, gotten everything out. We are maximizing a capital program. You know, just 5 short years ago, we had a plan over a 5-year period, that was $1.6 billion in anticipated contractor awards for a 5-year period. And the one that you will see before you that you're looking at right now is about $5.8 billion. So we have made some progress, even though what I will say is that progress is almost 100% on the federal side of the equation and ledger. We're not necessarily getting the job done on the state revenue side. A couple nice lifts, certainly by the General Assembly and the governor a year ago, focus on bridge program, but no sustainable revenue. And yet you see that every single year we've been able to increase our estimates of contractor awards and get more work out into the system, which is critically necessary. It still doesn't solve the problem, but boy, I tell you, it's good to move in the right direction here. And that's what the teams are doing. I think we're also, having looked at with a sharper eye with the commission's leadership and urging to really target some relief in areas where conditions vary significantly from the norm. We'll hopefully make some progress in bringing the average user experience on their travel to more of an average experience that they see anywhere else in the state. Again, not enough to get all the way there, but I think a pretty good start here. And we're fortunate for the CARES Act consideration by the administration and the governor's office, and certainly the Relief Act that Congress passed is helping us get there. We appreciate your willingness to consider exercising some flexibility and additional resources by tapping the capital markets. I think it's a conservative and wise approach, because it keeps us. What you can see here is in this STIP, we advance more than the cost of inflation. So we will make progress here in this period of time. I think the planning partners are going to be excited by this. We certainly are, and I think we're going to have a very good plan coming forward to you. One of the things I will note is that the anticipated additional staff resources, it's beyond the capital planning that we're talking here. We really do hope and expect to make some progress at the federal level again. And we are tapped out as an enterprise. We did $1 billion of work with 1,200 fewer people than the last time we hit $1 billion. And our team is really maximized with its capacity. So we're going to have to deal with that. We're going to have to bring more resources to bear so that we can execute these pretty rigorous plans. That's not in our budget request for 2022, but we just want the commission, we want the public to be aware that is coming. And if the federal program expands this year, we need to be able to meet that need and execute that plan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Any other comments for Brenda or Eric? All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time doing that. We're looking forward to moving forward on all this. And I understand that the commission may have to modify some policies in order for staff to implement the work on all this. And we'll look forward to seeing those policy revisions at the next commission meeting. So it's time now for our public comment period. Members of the public who don't schedule a formal presentation before the commission can speak to the commission on transportation related issues by registering with the commission secretary 24 hours in advance of the meeting. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes or 10 minutes per subject. Madam Secretary, I have 2 on my list. Is that still correct?
That's still correct. That is still correct.
Okay. Well, we'll start with. Okay. Thank you, Pam. We'll start with Steve Bobanovich. Steve, are you there?
I am here. I'm
all right.
trying to
Welcome,
adjust
and
my
the floor is
video
yours.
and audio. Thank you, Chairman.
I see you now. Yes.
Anna, can everybody see me?
I think
Very
we see
good.
you.
I,
Yep.
I come before you as Stephen Bobanovich of HR Quadri Contractors. However, I want to talk about AGC of Missouri. I thought I would introduce myself to the commission. I'm this year's chairman of the Highway and Heavy Infrastructure Division. Glad to be so, and just wanted to introduce myself as that. As I'm sure the commissioners and most of the staff on the call, we have a excellent cooperative relationship with the department. Want to continue that. It's been quite the challenge over the last few months with the pandemic. Hopefully we can get back together. Had a couple things I wanted to say, and I'll be very brief. Obviously, I think most everybody knows what we do. We represent the contractors that work for the department, about 500 of them in most all counties and city municipalities, except for the greater Kansas City area. We also do a lot of cooperative work with MoDOT staff. We have various divisions that meet with that staff. We have a bridge division, we have a grading division, we have a safety division, we have both asphalt and paving divisions. Specialty contractors, we do a lot with that. I have to give a shout out to Missy Stoodle in her comments. One thing we have been working really hard on in the boot heel is we have a relationship with Three Rivers College out of Poplar Bluff, and have completed our second careers in construction, if you will, class. The second class was all minorities. We are getting ready to start our third class, which will be all veterans. And these people will be trained. It's a 6-week, 40-hour-a-week course. They're all trained in a lot of the things that Missy brought up in her presentation about appropriate training. They're going to be ready to go to work. So wanted to bring that up. Let's see, I've got a couple other notes here. We're also working on another program in the fall. Hopefully we can go online with that based on the buildmyfuture.org. Could be .com. Don't quote me on that. Event for getting young people involved in the industry, whether it be the construction industry, the MoDOT industry, the engineering community, getting them involved in this. So just wanted to introduce AGC of Missouri to the commission, and I must give congratulations to the Clarkson team, as if my records are correct, both of them are AGC Missouri members. So with that, I won't take up any more of your time, but I would gladly field any questions.
Thank you, Stephen. We look forward to continuing our long, good relationship with AGC. Patrick, did you have any comments?
Well, I think Steve said it well. We work really hard at this relationship, and it benefits. Who it benefits is the taxpayers of Missouri. We spend time planning and constructing this infrastructure rather than fighting about how it should be done, and that comes with hard work on the ground because we all run different enterprises. We're on the public side. The pressures of the contractors with their employee, their capital planning, all of the things that go into this. This is a complicated industry. Our contracting community takes risk, and they take risk with personally owned capital to be able to work in this industry. And we are very fortunate that here in Missouri, I think we have some of the best contractors in the country. And that's why we work so hard to try to make sure that we maximize the resource availability for contractor rewards to get the work done. You know, we have had nothing but terrific results over the past year during the pandemic, during these challenges, and AGC and the organization and working with and through these issues has been a terrific partner. So thanks, Steve. Glad you're the chair of the division. We look forward to working with you this year.
Thank you for the kind words, Patrick.
Steve, thanks for being here and introducing yourself.
Very good. Thank you.
Steve, thank you for taking time. You know, AGC and there's several other organizations out there that do an outstanding job of advocating for infrastructure throughout the state and throughout the country. And a lot of that time is donated, and most folks don't realize that, but guys like you donate their time to advocate for infrastructure, and it certainly is appreciated. Thank you much.
Thank you, Commissioner Boatwright.
All right. Thank you, Stephen. Now, the other person on the list I have is Arnie Dinoff. Arnie, are you with us today?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Great. Yes, we can. We had trouble last month getting connected with you, so I'm happy to have an opportunity to allow you to speak before the commission, and I'll turn the floor over to you, Arnie.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dinoff. I'm a state public advocate. And I tried to talk to you last month, and there were some technical issues. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I'm glad to speak with you. And I wanted to wish you all last month a happy new year, and I hope that we have a better 2021. I enjoyed the workshop last month and learning a lot about MoDOT. I look forward to learning more about the in-depthness in the various departments and divisions of MoDOT. But today I'd like to bring awareness and understanding to the commissioners about the I-70 design build project. $62 million is a lot of money. I want to make sure that we get our 100% return on investment, and I am not certain that we are at this point. Priorities need to be the essence when deciding on roads in St. Charles County with a growing population. It is so important to look at information that is, number one, data-driven, 2, safety concerns, 3, accessibility, and 4, listen to the citizens. We need another lane to I-70 in both the eastbound and westbound lanes. The project manager said at the public meetings that the lanes will not be of consideration. Numerous questions, concerns, outpouring and crying from the public. At the public hearing, which was kept open, there's over to date 1,400 comments and growing. And I asked that the commissioners and the Department of Transportation halt and put the brakes on. Stop the out of control train. An outcry and vocal opposition by St. Charles County Executive in a November public hearing before MoDOT and the County Council, which you can see on video. And I asked that Director McKenna offer that video so you can see exactly what took place and what transpired. An outcry and deep concerns of St. Charles County Council members, a high opposition by members of the St. Charles City Council and the St. Peter's Board of Aldermen. The public hearing testimony that was supposedly supposed to be recorded, and testimony from both myself and St. Charles City Councilman Tom Besselman. A huge outcry from business owners that are afraid that their businesses are going to be destroyed and have to close because of the possible outlay or improvements. An opposition letter written by State Representative Summers, and there's other representatives of St. Charles County that have a lot of concerns in the 106th Legislative District. As I said, there's other state representatives and state senators that have concerns and have reached out to MoDOT, and I ask that you see these communications either via letter or via email. I urge you to also see and view the St. Charles County Council video from November of 2020, the public hearing held in December recorded by MoDOT, the over 1,400 public comments received to date, The Elliot Davis reporter story of Fox 2 St. Louis, You Paid For It investigative reporter, the blogs by the community and business owners on Facebook and other social media. This project will pick winners and losers of what businesses will survive and what businesses will file for bankruptcy. $250,000 or more will be given to every losing bidder. What is the total payout to the bidders? $10 million is coming from St. Charles County, from a half-cent sales tax, and an additional $8 million will be loaned by St. Charles County Road Board to MoDOT. The public relations of this whole project has really been bad from the get-go. Handling of the project has not been done with kid gloves, but it's with the attitude of really no one cares. Withholding information and insight, no promise of additional lanes on I-70, which the county executive was promised in negotiations with MoDOT to be on board. Enforcing one-way outer roads, which is against what the city of St. Peters wants and is pushing them into a corner. It will possibly, by going to outer roads, it will possibly bankrupt and put car dealerships out of business. I want to ensure that the commissioners have a stake in this and are brought up to speed on this project because there is a huge public outcry on this I-70 project from Fairgrounds Boulevard to Cave Springs Road. I want to ensure that every citizen in every group is counted and loudly heard. I've asked MoDOT to make the 1,400 public testimony, written testimony, a matter of public record. I hope, was that my time, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead and
okay.
Wrap it up, please.
Yes, thank you so much. I would like the 1,400 comments to be summarized into some type of executive summary to be shared with all the local officials and all the governmental bodies that are affected and let the public weigh in. This has not been brought before the commissioners. I don't think that the commissioners know about the situation. And I ask that you do your due diligence, that you do your investigation, and that we make sure that this project is being handled with kid gloves in a first-class manner. $62 million is nothing to sneeze at, and I think that we need guarantees to come out of this project. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. If any of you would like to call me for further information, my telephone number is 314-440-9000, and my email address is arniedinoff@yahoo.com. And I really ask that you step up to the plate, ask the important questions, dig into this project, find the answers, look at the facts out there in the public testimony, and let's have a project that's going to work for everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Dinoff. I'm glad the connection worked this time. I appreciate to advocate for constituents in your area there. So
thank you.
This brings us now to commission concerns. We like to wrap up each meeting by giving the commissioners an opportunity to provide comments and address the rest of the commissioners. I'm going to start with Commissioner Eckert, and I thought it was really ironic him talking about all the snow that he had when he's sitting in sunny Florida. Terry, floor's yours.
Mr. Chairman, and I had to get out of that deep snow. So I just want to start out by saying I want to, extend a thank you to the governor for, transportation and infrastructure being mentioned, and that's at the forefront of what he wants to see accomplished in his administration. And I know that a lot of that has to do with the work that Jay and Patrick have done. So that's great to hear. One of the most exciting things today was hearing about the Buck O'Neill Bridge, the winning project. Those plans look exciting. Like Tom said, I can't wait to drive across that. And kudos to Mary and all the leaders in Kansas City for making the project happen. I also like that today having those division reports, getting to know a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes that we don't talk about all the time. And even though I've been on the commission for 3 years, it's still good to hear that stuff as a refresher, and some of it for the first time. I couldn't get my mute button off soon enough whenever Representative Briggs was talking about the bypass in Hannibal. And, you know, we have those issues brought to us all the time. And, you know, we wish that we had the money to do everything for everyone. But I am a little bit hesitant whenever in Northwest Districts we have 2,600 miles of road that are at 37% good and 6,000 miles of roads that are at 50% good condition. So, you know, when there's limited resources, I hope people like Representative Briggs understand the constraints that we have in trying to fulfill all the wants and needs of the citizens of the state of Missouri. And following up with that, I want to thank Patrick for all the hard work he's doing on the extra funding that we're getting and coming up with a plan to try to take care of some of these deficits. And I really like the term that, Patrick, you're using is the average user experience. That to me is a good term because, as you said, the average user experience is different in different parts of the state. And then in closing, I want to just give kudos to the Northwest District and all the work that they're doing on all the snow removal that we've had up in our area. For those of you who don't know, one weekend we had 12 inches of snow. And according to all the wives' tales, the people that follow the number of foggy days is, you know, this fall and stuff, that we're still have, I don't know, something like 15 snowfalls yet to go, and the big one hasn't happened yet. So I hope they're all wrong, but it's really appreciative for, like Pat's saying, everybody chipping in and making sure that the roads are safe to travel on when those snow events happen. And in closing, I just want to say, go Chiefs.
All right. Thank you, Terry. Commissioner Briscoe. We'll
Yes,
go
sir,
to Northeast Missouri.
Yes, sir. Well, Terry saved me a lot of breath because he said a lot of things that I was kind of interested in saying. I do want to thank Mary Miller and congratulate her for all the work she's done on getting us this far on the Buck O'Neill Bridge. I think that's fantastic. I want to thank Brenda Morris and Eric Schroeder for their continuing fine work on the financial matters. And then also, I know we've heard about these low volume roads quite a lot over the last year or two, and rightly so. I'm not complaining and not criticizing anybody, but from Patrick's remarks earlier, it seemed to me maybe we're finally going to have a little more funding to help with the low volume road problem that we have in this state. And I think that with that, I thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been good to visit with you all today.
Thank you, John. Commissioner Brinkman, you're next.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to congratulate Missy on that diversity stuff. That is really hard to do as a general contractor. I think we're doing a good job there. I'm glad to see Stephen with AGC is helping with that, with the training. It's hard to get people to get into our trade here. And the other thing I enjoy seeing, we get a lot of reports from Jay over there. I'm amazed at the number of bills there are over there that the reps and the senators are working on transportation this year. And as Patrick said earlier, they're going at it with fervor. So hopefully we'll get something done this year. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Bob. Commissioner Smith, it's your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John and Terry have said about all I was going to say. Just again, congratulations on the Buck O'Neill Bridge starting to going to become a reality here in about 3 or 4 years. So that's exciting. I've been involved with it on the commission. Patrick, thank you and all the team and all the districts in the state for all their hard work. And you know, my biggest concern is this fatality rate increase. And I think that's something that we really need to be working with patrol and trying to fix that problem. I don't really know what the fix is. We had a little 18-year-old girl get killed here last night in a fatality accident. She had a 5-month-old baby. So sad deal, but it's a very concern, and I don't know. Nobody knows the answers, I guess. But anyway, look forward to seeing you all one of these days. Someday we'll all get together again. But until then, I really like this Zoom meeting because I can be back to work in just a little less than 60 seconds from here. So anyway, thank you guys for all the hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Floor is yours.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank everybody on the call today. You know, the folks who take time out of their day to listen in on the meetings, to have input. That's super helpful. And ultimately, it leads to investment into our future generations and infrastructure, which is certainly an important thing. We're lucky that our forefathers invested the things that they invested into infrastructure that we get to reap today. It's such a great thing, and we must keep it up. I continue to be impressed with MoDOT staff across the board, north, south, east, west. I mean, it's incredible the work that the staff is able to put out to get done. I love these design build projects. It's super impressive with the Buck O'Neill Bridge today, but just very thankful for the staff that we have and the work that they do. So thank you.
Thanks, Dustin. Well, I'll wrap it up. I want to talk about the Buck O'Neill Bridge, but I think everybody's kind of covered that. But Patrick kind of mentioned the city of Kansas City, and I thought it's appropriate to give a shout out to the former mayor, Sly James, for his leadership, and then the current mayor, Quentin Lucas, for his leadership and pushing this forward, and not only the monetary commitment, but the leadership commitment as well. And you can't mention them without mentioning all the north side of the bridge too that pushed so hard for this. So it's been a real group effort of a lot of people, and I know Mary Miller and her team have done an outstanding job, and I look for that to continue. Just an exciting thing for Kansas City, almost as exciting as this weekend. So with that, I'll say, go Chiefs. All right, we're going to wrap it up. Pam, do you have anything else for us today?
Mr. Chairman, that is all.
All right, before we adjourn, I want to remind everybody our next meeting will be March 3rd. That's after the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. Do we have a motion? Adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, so moved. I'll second it. John got it.
Motion to adjourn and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Sign. Motion carries. It's been a good meeting, folks.
Go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs. How about those Chiefs? Thank you, everybody. We'll see you.